with COVID-19 hitting, I decided it was good for us to go through the book of James to get us a perspective of how we are still responsible to be the church, even though we can't have church in our traditional way. And then wrestling through theology and what God is up to, what this pandemic is saying. On our Tuesday night, which is our midweek service, I started a study of the book of Revelation, that we could be able to know the times and know what is taking place and what is not taking place as it relates to the end times during this season. So I think those things were a combined reality. And then once the civil arrests happened, I've been doing more keeping that flow, keeping that focus, but doing special announcements, sort of PSAs, if you will, about what's going on that week, and how just let them know as a pastor that I'm in tune to their perils, their cries socially, but keeping that spiritual base in that reality. And so one of the things, if I can wrap this and tie this with the previous question that Dr. Akers so wonderfully answered, is that I want our people to be aware of systemic racism. I want them to be able to call it out, but I also want them to know how that differs from the historical racism in America, that they are well-meaning, loving white Christians and white people in general that have no ill in their heart towards African Americans, minorities, people of color, those that are different. There is a power structure that they benefit from, that they may not be in tune to, that they have to be more sensitive to as it relates to minorities, people of color, Black people. And so they'll be able to have that dialogue with people and not scare them off by label them as something that they're not, and thus shutting down the whole conversation. And so trying to understand what uninformed biases are, how we all have these uninformed biases, and that if we were to close our eyes and say certain things, there are certain pictures that will come in our mind and certain pictures that would not come in our mind, and how that impacts our educational system, how that impacts our economic system, how that impacts how a small business being led by a Black woman is able to get credit and funding for business compared to someone else. The access to resources and power and accountability when all of our governors make up the same race, all of our congresspersons, senators, except for I think one at this point, one or two that are not a part of that minority construct. So how we have the tendency to lean and operate and focus with one another. And so those are the things that we're trying to marry together in our spiritual emphasis of hope during COVID-19, of using this opportunity to have those conversations, to have them in a very healthy and intelligent way.
Yeah, I can see James chapter 2 could be, well, many of the texts actually could have really powerful and meaningful connections to contemporary issues of racism, you know?
Yeah, James 1, 9 through 11, that paradox as relates to riches. James 12, of persevering in the midst of difficulties. That's 1 and 12. James 2, of partiality, just blatant right there in your face. James 2, 14 through 26, faith without works is dead, making sure that that's instilled to it. James 3, guarding your tongue. James 3, godly wisdom compared to earthly wisdom. James 5, to the rich, that they need to be on guard because judgment is coming. So yeah, it speaks directly to that.
I can see how there's implications and applications in the text itself. That's what I like to tell people. You know, it may not like be talking about the issue the same way that we would frame it up, but there's implications and applications definitely there.
If you enjoyed this conversation from the Monday Morning Preacher podcast, discover the full episode at preachingtoday.com/podcast.